In 1798, Minister G.W. Snyder asked George Washington, our George Washington, if Illuminati influence was there in America. In his reply, Washington didn't doubt that the quote, the doctrines of Illuminism and the principles of Jacobism had found their way to America. But Washington said he did not believe the lodges of Freemasons in this country, which he was a member of, had, as societies, endeavored to propagate such ideas. But he feared that some individual Masons were guilty of doing so, and he singled out the so-called Democratic Republican societies. Washington also regarded radical pamphleteer Tom Paine as one of those individuals. I know. It did a little bit.
Hold on a second. George Washington didn't like Thomas Paine?
Well, no, he thinks
Thomas
that
Paine is give me liberty or give me death guy.
but Thomas Paine is also believed to have been involved in the French Revolution.
Oh,
Like
no,
he
he's
was kind of, he
Sorry,
did
go
a
ahead.
bunch of different stuff, but one of his big things was he liked writing propaganda. Because he kind of helped spread a lot of, because he did help inspire the revolution here, but it was through these kind of what would be considered kind of propaganda writings, kind of firing people up about things. He was doing it in Europe before that. I
So
I
George
looked into him a little
Washington,
bit.
this is
He
like
was
melting my brain a
I
little
know.
bit.
I don't
So
think, but yeah, he's saying that Tom Paine is one of these radicals that are the Illuminati that want to overthrow the world. Like he just wants to start stuff up. Because I think it's known that Paine was associated with the French Revolution, that he was there
right.
and he was writing stuff there. And then he comes to America like a decade later.
Well, I think the French Revolution happened after the American Revolution.
Oh yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Okay, other way
Well,
around. Sorry. Yeah, you're
no,
right.
it's
He
just
was here, then went there.
what's boggling my mind is we tend to think of the American Revolution as this one block of ideas. Like you have Thomas Paine and you have Benjamin Franklin, you have George Washington, and they're all like in one big room together, like coming up with their ideas. And then you have George Washington, the father of our country, literally saying, I don't trust these people, some of these people.
Yeah, which is a little confusing because again, he was a member of the Masons.
Yeah, I wonder if he wasn't very high up, or maybe he just was superficially a member, or maybe this is around the time when the Masons were getting taken over by the Illuminati. Maybe he was an
That's
original
also
Mason, and he was like, I
that's
don't like this Illuminati stuff.
that makes sense. You
Like,
know
cause
what? That actually does make sense what you just said. And that would make sense why he's now kind of not a fan of Paine.
right,
Because he may have been on board with it when he was doing it here in America, but then he goes over to France and starts kind of pulling
yeah,
strings and levers over there with his writing. And now he's known to be involved. He thinks he's involved. He knows he's a Mason. He thinks he's involved with this Illuminati that started over there. So that's probably actually what's happening.
yeah. I think.
It's weird that I feel like there might be some good guy Freemasons now.
Well, no, I think there probably would have to be just because of what we learned about how they use people and how it seems to be infiltrated at some point.
Yeah.
I gotta be honest, I have a strong bias towards liking George Washington. I just, but it just
Well,
seems
yeah.
like what you're describing with the infiltration. Maybe he might not be a total evangelical Catholic, or whatever Christian, but like it seems like he's not. The whole idea of the American Revolution is like we have dissolved our bonds with you.
Yeah.
It's anti New World Order.
Yeah.
Like so, it would make sense that based on what we learned on the last episode, where we found that Freemasons were trying to start the Spanish-American War and stuff like that, that some people might be involved in the American Revolution just to stir the pot and start a new world order, and some people like George Washington might be involved for freedom,
Yeah.
and that those two things could be at odds, and you could both be Freemasons.
Well, and I think we're finding that the farther, like, especially now that we're digging into all this now, Freemasons are a very complicated group, I think, is
Yeah.
and have kind of been swayed and turned over the years. And I think kind of what we touched on last time we talked about, the more I learn about them, I do think it was pretty innocent when it started.
I kind of had that theory too. Yeah, I kind of think it got corrupt. And I think that probably happens with every secret society because the nature of a secret society is that the more secret, demented stuff. That's why Christianity's always been like open, right?
Yeah.
Like public revelation, everything's open, nothing's secret. Because when things get secret, you're prone to other secret groups trying to, take control and stuff. But I'm sure when it
Yeah.
started, it might have been completely innocent. It might have been literally been a union for stonemasons that slowly became this bizarre thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, next I want to move on to a man named William Morgan, who was born in 1774. He was a resident of Batavia, New York. Now, Morgan claimed to have been made a master mason while he was living in Canada, and that he appears to have briefly attended a lodge, and it appears that he had briefly attended a lodge in Rochester. In 1825, though, Morgan received the Royal Arch degree at Leroy's Western Star chapter number 33, having declared under oath that he had previously received the 6 degrees that preceded it. And we're not going to get into all the weird Mason level stuff. Basically, there were some prereqs that he was supposed to take care of somewhere else that it's questionable whether he actually did.
Yeah.
It's never been established if he actually received these degrees from which lodge. Morgan then attempted unsuccessfully to help establish or visit lodges and chapters in Batavia, but he was denied participation by members who disapproved of his character and even questioned his claims to Masonic membership. This angered Morgan, who finally announced that he was going to publish an expose titled Illustrations of Freemasonry, critical of the Freemasons, and revealing their secret degree work in detail. That's one account.
Yeah.
That's not really the one I believe, though, based
Okay.
on. I'm going to give you the beginning of both stories, and then it's going to end in pretty much the same place. And you'll see why I don't think that's probably the one that's true.
Okay.
So other records claim Morgan routinely visited New York State Masonic lodges in the cities of Batavia, Leroy, and Rochester in the early 1800s. But his Masonic standing gradually came into question, and he was removed and later blackballed from membership. Rebuked, Morgan threatened to expose the Freemasons' inner secrets in his upcoming book. He further angered the local Masons by bragging about receiving a sizable advance from a local newspaper for his exposé's publication. So that's really the only difference here is one record says like he claimed all this stuff, but there's no proof he did any of it. But then he threatened to write this thing and the Masons got mad. And then there's the other one that says that he was in them and they got upset with him and blackballed him. And then he threatened to write this book and then they got mad at him. If you don't know anything about the Freemasons, why are they worried about you writing about what their secrets are? Because there's already people writing what they say is made up stuff as it is. So why is this
yeah, he had
secret?
infiltrated them apparently, though, according to both accounts.
Well, just a little bit though in the first account.
Yeah, I'm with you though. It doesn't make a lot of sense that basically a fraudster. Also, the word blackball implies that you're part of the group to begin with. You can't blackball a person who's not part of your group.
Well, yeah, in the second story where they say he's blackballed him, he's in
Oh,
the
right.
membership, and they grow not to like him
Hmm.
and question him, and then they remove him.
Well, I think it depends on what. I'll say this: I'll reserve my judgment on which story is true, but
I was gonna say
it depends on the truth of what he writes. Which
let's
I'm
let
sure.
this let's let this story play out a little bit.
All right.
So Morgan announced that a local newspaper publisher, David Cade Miller, had given him a sizable advance for the work. Miller is said to have received the entered apprentice degree, the first degree of Masonry, but had been stopped from advancement by objections of Batavia Lodge members. So Miller is the guy that runs the press that's going to print Morgan's stuff. He kind of got in, but got kicked out pretty much immediately. He made the first degree.
All right.
So he promised Morgan 1/4 of the profits, and the financial backers of the venture were Miller, John Davids, who was Morgan's landlord, and Russell Dyers. They entered into a $500,000 penal bond with Morgan to guarantee its publication.
That's like $1 trillion today. That's ridiculous.
Like, they are gonna print this thing.
Oh my gosh.
And this part, there's nobody argues about this part. Like, there was a deal. It was a big deal. He was going to write this. It was going to be in this guy's paper.
This is early 1880s.
Yes. This is the 1820s.
I want to look up, while you talk, I'm going to look up what $500,000 was in 1825.
Okay. Now, since Masons placed their hands on a Bible and promised not to reveal, placed their hands on a Bible and promised not to reveal the passwords and grips of the degrees, several members of the Batavia Lodge published an advertisement denouncing Morgan for breaking his word by authoring the book. So that tells me they're really worried about it. They actually took out an ad, like trying.
They said he broke his word.
Yep.
So he's a member.
Like, you should, which is even weirder. Like, he's going to write a tell-all thing, and they're like, you shouldn't listen to him because he broke his promise to us to not tell our secrets. So don't read the thing that tells our secrets. Like, that's a really weird approach.
Yeah, this is oh my gosh, nothing ever changes. I love how we have such foresight when we look back on conspiracy theories, but this stuff still happens today.
Yep.
People talk out of both sides of their mouth. They're like, he's not a member, but also he's breaking his agreement not to talk about this stuff.
Yep.
By the way, I looked it up. $500,000 in 1825, $13 million. So it's not the end of the world.
It's a pretty big book advance.
That's a big
expose advance.
That's a lot of that's a lot of. I was thinking it would be some like ungodly sum though, you know.
And it is basically a book. I think I said it's going in the paper. It's the guy that owns a paper, but it's a book.
Yeah.
So an attempt also, along with the ad that was written to try and denounce Morgan, an attempt was also made to set fire to Miller's newspaper office and print shop. So somebody's really upset that this thing is getting ready to happen.
God, bro, it's just random people. It's just a coincidence.
So on September 11th, 1826, Morgan was arrested for supposed non-payment of a loan and allegedly stealing a shirt and tie.
Dude, I almost wonder, I know we are live recording, but I almost wonder if you really got deep into research if stealing a shirt and tie isn't some code word. If that, because that's such an extreme, that's such a weird thing.
It's property. It's literally just property theft.
You stole a shirt and a tie.
Yes, I looked.
Just had friends put $13 million into his account.
Yep.
Okay.
So, according to the laws of the time, he could be held in debtor's prison until restitution was made for the shirt and tie and the debt, which would have made it more difficult to publish his book. Morgan was jailed, and when Miller learned of this, he went to the jail to pay the debt and secure Morgan's release. Okay. Morgan was released, but then was rearrested and charged with supposedly failing to pay a $2 tavern bill. So just people are making up stuff, is what's happening.
It's Masons. Some guy owned a shirt and tie store, and he's like, you know what? I think he stole a shirt and tie, and then I
remember the story is actually like that he stole it off of somebody's like clothesline or something.
For real though?
Yeah.
Like I don't know this guy, but you're going around stealing one shirt and one tie off a person's clothesline, and then you get paid off that. Then a bartender goes, you know what? If I think about it, there was a beer he never paid for. This is suspicious as hell, man.
So he's back in jail on the $2 bill. simpler times.
Yeah.
So while the jailer,
Let's times that we just found out that $500,000 is $13 million. So times 2 times 26, that's a $52 bar tab. I might be mad about that if I was.
so coincidentally, the jailer just happened to go away for a little bit and leave the jail, but his wife was there. And a group of men stopped by and convinced his wife to release Morgan. They walked to a waiting carriage with Morgan, which arrived 2 days later at Fort Niagara. Shortly afterwards, Morgan disappeared. Now, there are conflicting accounts of what actually happened next to Morgan. The generally accepted version of the events is that Morgan was taken in a boat to the middle of the Niagara River and thrown overboard, where he presumably drowned, since he was never seen again in the community. Another version of events had Morgan being paid a large sum of money to simply disappear and give up publication of his book. In 1848, Henry L. Valance allegedly confessed on his deathbed to taking part in Morgan's murder, a tale recounted in Chapter 2 of Reverend C.G. Finney's anti-Masonic book, The Character, Claims, and Practical Workings of Freemasonry, which was written in 1869.
Uh-huh.
So, but in October of 1827, a badly decomposed body washed up on the shores of Lake Ontario. Now, many had presumed it to be Morgan, and the body was buried as his. However, there was a wife of a missing Canadian man named Timothy Monroe, positively identified the clothing on the body as that as which had been worn by her husband at the time of his disappearance.
Okay.
One group of Freemasons denied that Morgan was killed, saying that they paid him $500 to leave the country. Dude has a $500,000 book deal right now.
I'm trying to do this times 26 math, so that would be $13,000. Would you leave the country right now for $13,000?
No, no.
Especially if you have half a million. If you had a $13 million book deal, would you leave the country for $13,000?
Or at least a deal that if it doesn't get made, you're getting paid that much. You're gonna make some money though, regardless. He's got a portion of the profits coming from the book. Anyway, so maybe he was paid.
I mean, I could believe that the body wasn't his, but the thing about talking about stuff that happened 200 years ago is that it's possible that the rumor that they dumped him overboard started after they found the body.
Yeah.
And so we read this stuff ahistorically, but it sounds like the official historical version at least includes Masons taking him out of jail because the wife of the jailer let them do that, which is this is like the original Epstein, basically.
It kind of sounds like that, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's like, what's going on in this jail?
Yep. There was another report that Morgan was seen later, including, like, there were a bunch of reports, supposedly, that he was seen in other countries, but none of the reports were ever confirmed. Eventually, though, Eli Bruce, the sheriff of Niagara County, and a Mason, was removed from office and tried for his involvement in Morgan's disappearance. He ended up serving 28 months in prison after being convicted of conspiracy for his role in kidnapping Morgan and holding him against his will before his disappearance.
I was going to say, is this guy a Mason? I didn't want to sound crazy. And he literally is.
He was a Mason.
Oh, wow.
He was, in fact, a Mason. So, there were three other Masons, Lowton Lawson, Nicholas Chesebro, and Edward Sawyer, who were also convicted of taking part in the kidnapping, and they served sentences as well. Other Batavia Masons were tried but acquitted. Author Jasper Ridley suggests that Morgan was probably killed by local Masons, as all scenarios are highly improbable.
Yeah.
Historian H. Paul Jeffers also considers this to be the more credible explanation.
Right.
Which, I mean, that's kind of what I think happened. They tried to put him in jail. It seemed like that was just a way to hold him till they could figure out what to do with him. Then he got back out real quick, and they're like, well, if he's going to get out real quick, people are going to bail him out. Let's just kill him. Like, because they
Yeah.
were mad. He's like writing this. He's getting ready to make a bunch of money off their secrets, is the way they're seeing it.
You don't. The best way to piece apart a conspiracy is to ask like what makes sense in a reality. Like just use your BS detector.
Yeah.
If he really wasn't a member of the Masons, they would not have published a newspaper article saying he's displaying our secrets. If you just wanted to pay him to go away and the authorities in charge of him being in jail were on board with you, you could have just paid him to go away, and you could have said we reached an arrangement, and he's decided now to go pursue a life in Canada or whatever.
Yeah.
It's everything happens in secret. The only thing you know is that dude showed up in the night, took him out of jail, just Epstein style, and he's vanished. And you never hear any. The dude who would have the motivation to write a book exposing all the Freemason stuff, he never did anything else in his life. He never decided to write a book about this or that, or
He had a couple.
like,
He had other stuff he wrote. Nothing like this.
After. No, I'm saying
No.
after. No, so he's an author, and you say, well, we just said leave the country, which is a weird thing for a secret society to do. But I'm saying like he never wrote another book after that. So their official story is he moved. We just paid him to move.
We gave him $500, and he lived off that forever.
He lived off that forever. And also the guy who's wrote books about multiple subjects, who makes his living off writing books, never wrote a book again.
Nope.
Interesting. And we only gave him $13,000.
Yep.
They murdered the guy.
Yeah. Oh yeah, they murdered the guy.
They murdered the guy.
I wanted to set out all possibilities, but because that's what got said. But yeah, that dude got killed immediately.
Their version is BS. I mean, let's say
if they didn't kill him before they threw him in the river, they killed him by strapping a bunch of bricks to his leg and drowning him.
Yeah, or he's in the bottom of a temple somewhere that nobody goes into because we're all Freemasons.
That's possible too.
Yeah.
Here's the thing, though. Soon after Morgan disappeared like this, Miller, he went ahead and published the book.
Ooh.
So, getting rid of Morgan accomplished nothing. It actually became a bestseller because of the notoriety of the events surrounding his disappearance. The Freemasons actually made it more popular by killing him. So Miller did not say that Morgan had been murdered, but that he had been carried away. Accounts circulated of Morgan having assumed a new identity and settling in Albany, Canada, or the Cayman Islands, where he was said to have been hanged as a pirate. New York Governor DeWitt Clinton, also a Mason, offered a $1,000 reward for information about Morgan's whereabouts, but it was never claimed. The circumstances of Morgan's disappearance and the minimal punishment received by his kidnappers caused public outrage, and he became a symbol of the rights of free speech and free press. Protests against Freemasons took place in New York and neighboring states. Masonic officials disavowed the actions of the kidnappers, but all Masons were under a cloud of suspicion. Thurlow Weed, a New York politician, gathered discontented opponents of President Andrew Jackson, a Mason, if you'll remember from a couple episodes ago, into the Masonic into the anti-Masonic party, which gained the support of such notable politicians as William H. Seward and Millard Fillmore. So in the 1928 campaign, other Jackson rivals, including John Quincy Adams, who was president at the time, joined in denouncing the Masons.
You mean 1828?
Oh, what did I say?
1928.
Yeah, 1828. Sorry.
Yeah.
John Quincy Adams was not alive during the Great Depression. So, sorry about that. In 1832, the anti-Masonic Party fielded William Wirt as its presidential candidate and Amos L. Maker as his running mate, and they received 7 electoral votes from Vermont. By 1835, the party had begun falling apart, though, and dying off everywhere except Pennsylvania, as other issues, such as slavery, became the focus of national attention. So modern conspiracists such as Nesta Webster and William Guy Carr believe the methods of the Illuminati as described in Proofs of a Conspiracy were copied by radical groups throughout the 19th and 20th centuries in their subversion of benign organizations. Spiritual Counterfeits Project editor Tal Brook has compared the views of Proofs of a Conspiracy with those found in Carroll Quigley's Tragedy and Hope. Brooks suggests that the New World Order, which Robertson believed Adam Weishaupt, founder of the Illuminati, had in part accomplished through the infiltration of Freemasonry, will now be completed by those holding sway over the international banking system by means of the Rothschild banks, the U.S. Federal Reserve, the International Monetary Fund, and the World Bank.
All the people who tried to kill FDR.
Yep. Another thing that we talked about a little while back.